Your doctor told you to cut out all sweets the moment you were diagnosed with diabetes. And you listened. You stopped eating dessert. You checked every label. You said no when everyone else at the table said yes. You became careful in a way most people never have to be. You made sacrifices quietly every single day. And yet, some mornings you wake up, you have not eaten anything bad the night before, and your blood sugar is still high. And you sit there quietly thinking, what am I doing wrong? I did everything right. Why is this still happening? That moment, that quiet, frustrating confusion, that is exactly where most people get stuck. Not because they are not trying hard enough, but because nobody ever gave them the full picture. Because the advice you were given, avoid sweets, restrict everything, watch every bite, was not wrong. It was just incomplete. And that one missing piece is what keeps millions of people managing diabetes for years without ever seeing real, lasting improvement. They restrict and restrict and restrict, and something is still off, and they cannot figure out why. Today, we are going to fix that. My name is Dr. Megan Foster. I have been working directly with people managing type 2 diabetes for 24 years, not in a research lab, in a clinic, face to face, with real people who are frustrated, confused, and trying their absolute best. I have seen the full range of what works, what does not work, and most importantly, why. And what I am going to share with you today is not a trend. It is not a supplement pitch or a quick fix. It is the part of diabetes management that most people never get told about. The part that changes everything once you understand it. So if you have been doing all the right things and still not seeing the results you expected, stay with me. Because this video was made for exactly where you are right now. Let me start at the beginning. And I mean the real beginning, not the symptoms, but the actual mechanism. Because if you understand what is truly happening inside your body, everything else we talk about today will make complete sense. When most people hear the word diabetes, the first thing that comes to mind is sugar. Too much sugar causes diabetes. Avoid sugar to manage diabetes. Cut the sweets. That is the mental model most people carry. And it is partially true, but only partially. And the part that is missing is the part that matters most. Here is what is actually happening inside your body when you have type 2 diabetes. And I want you to picture this as simply as possible because this is the foundation of everything. Imagine your cells are like rooms, millions of tiny rooms throughout your body, in your muscles, your organs, your brain. Each room needs energy to function. And glucose, which comes from the food you eat, is the primary energy source. Glucose is basically fuel. Your body runs on it. Now, glucose cannot just walk into those rooms on its own. It needs help. It needs a key. And that key is a hormone called insulin. Insulin is produced by your pancreas, and its entire job is to open the doors of your cells so glucose can get inside and power them. In a healthy body, you eat something, glucose enters your bloodstream, your pancreas releases insulin, insulin opens the cell doors, glucose gets in, and your blood sugar returns to a normal level. That whole process happens smoothly, efficiently, almost invisibly. But in type 2 diabetes, something starts to change. The locks on those cell doors begin to malfunction. They get stiff, they get unresponsive. The key, insulin, is still there. Your pancreas is still making it. But the locks have changed so much that the key does not work as well as it used to. So glucose cannot get into your cells efficiently. It stays outside, floating in your bloodstream. And that is what shows up as high blood sugar. That condition has a name. It is called insulin resistance. And here's the critical piece that most people are never told. Insulin resistance is not caused primarily by eating too much sugar. Yes, a diet consistently high in refined sugar contributes to it over time. But the main driver, like the thing that actually starts the process and keeps it going, is something different. It is inflammation. Chronic, low-grade inflammation inside the body. The kind you cannot feel, the kind that does not show up as pain or swelling. It is happening at a cellular level quietly over months and years, and it gradually changes the way your cells respond to insulin. It makes those locks stiffer, it makes the whole system less responsive. And here is why that matters for everything we are going to talk about today. If you only focus on removing sugar from your diet, you are only addressing one part of the problem. You are reducing one of the inputs, but the inflammation is still there. The environment inside your body is still working against you. And until that changes, your blood sugar will remain unpredictable, no matter how carefully you eat. This is why restriction alone has a ceiling. And this is why the people who do best with diabetes long term are not always the ones who restrict the most. They are the ones who also actively reduce inflammation and support their body's ability to use insulin properly. That is a completely different strategy, and it opens up a completely different set of tools. Now, before we go further, I want to ask you something, and I genuinely want you to think about this. Have you ever completely cut out sweets for a period of time? A week, a month, maybe longer? And when you did, what actually happened? Did your blood sugar stabilize the way you hoped? Or did things stay complicated and unpredictable even when you were doing everything right? Share your answer in the comments. I am not asking to be polite. I am asking because your experience matters to the other people watching this. When someone who has actually lived this speaks up, it reaches people in a way that a doctor talking at a camera never quite can. Let me also tell you something important about how inflammation develops, because understanding this will help you understand your own body in a way you probably have not before. Inflammation in the context of diabetes and insulin resistance is not something that happens suddenly. It is the result of a long accumulation of factors. Some of those factors are dietary, highly processed foods, refined oils, large amounts of refined sugar, artificial additives, but others are less obvious. Chronic stress, for example, is a significant driver of inflammation. When your body is under stress, it releases a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is useful in short bursts. It helps you respond to emergencies. But when cortisol is elevated consistently over weeks and months, it actively increases inflammation in the body and worsens insulin resistance. It also signals your liver to release stored glucose into your bloodstream, which is why people often see higher blood sugar readings during stressful periods even when their diet has not changed. Poor sleep is another major factor. Research over the past 15 years has made this very clear. Even a few nights of inadequate sleep measurably reduces insulin sensitivity. Your cells become more resistant to insulin after poor sleep. And the connection goes both ways. High blood sugar can disrupt sleep, and disrupted sleep worsens blood sugar. It becomes a cycle that is difficult to break if you're only looking at food. Gut health is a third factor that has gotten enormous attention in diabetes research. Inside your digestive system, you have trillions of microorganisms, bacteria primarily, that collectively play a direct role in how your body processes glucose, manages inflammation, and regulates hormones related to blood sugar. When that gut environment is healthy and balanced, your body manages glucose more efficiently. When it is disrupted by antibiotics, by a diet low in fiber, by processed foods, blood sugar regulation becomes harder, even if your diet in every other way looks reasonable. Physical inactivity is another piece. And I do not mean this as a lecture, I mean it as biology. Muscle tissue is the largest consumer of glucose in your body. When you move, even gently, your muscles absorb glucose directly, independently of insulin. This is one of the most powerful natural mechanisms for lowering blood sugar that exists. Even a 10-minute walk after a meal has been shown in multiple studies to significantly reduce post-meal blood sugar spikes. I am telling you all of this because I want you to understand that type 2 diabetes is not a simple condition with a simple fix. It is the result of multiple systems in your body getting out of balance over time, and the path back is not just about one thing. It is about understanding the whole picture. And that brings me to the part of this video I know you have been waiting for. Over the past decade, large nutritional studies have consistently found something that has shifted how many physicians, including myself, think about blood sugar management. Diets rich in anti inflammatory foods, healthy fats, and fiber do not just avoid blood sugar spikes, they actively improve insulin sensitivity over time. They begin to repair the environment that inflammation created. They help fix the locks. In several long term observations, participants who shifted their focus from pure restriction to food quality saw more stable glucose levels than those who simply eliminated sugar. Same diagnosis, same medications, same goal, very different strategy, and very different results over time. This is not permission to eat anything you want, it is the understanding that the right foods do not just avoid harm, they actively support your body's ability to function. And that distinction changes what you are looking for when you open the refrigerator. So, in the rest of this video, I am going to walk you through 3 specific desserts. Foods that are not just safe choices for people with diabetes, but foods that, when prepared correctly, actively support insulin sensitivity, reduce inflammation, and help stabilize blood sugar over time. I am also going to walk you through the science behind each one so you understand why it works, not just that it works. Because when you understand the why, you can make smarter choices across every meal, not just the ones I mentioned. And the third dessert is the one that surprises people most because it does not just affect the meal you are eating, it actually influences how your body responds to food the following morning. So stay with me through all 3. Let us start with something that challenges one of the most persistent misconceptions in nutrition: fat. The idea that people with diabetes or anyone trying to eat healthily should avoid fat is one of the most widespread and genuinely damaging nutritional myths of the past 50 years. It came from research that was later found to be flawed, got embedded into official dietary guidelines, and has been difficult to dislodge ever since. Here's the truth: not all fat is the same. There are different types of fat, and they have very different effects on your body. Some fats, the ones found in fried foods, processed snacks, and many fast food items, do contribute to inflammation and should be limited. But other fats, particularly monounsaturated and certain polyunsaturated fats found in whole plant foods, actively reduce inflammation, improve how your cells respond to insulin, and support the very systems that keep blood sugar stable. This is not a fringe opinion. This is what large, well designed nutritional studies consistently show. The Mediterranean dietary pattern, which is one of the most thoroughly studied eating approaches in nutritional science, is actually relatively high in fat. Olive oil, avocados, nuts, seeds, fatty fish. And it consistently shows positive effects on insulin sensitivity, blood sugar control, and cardiovascular health in people with type 2 diabetes. The first dessert I want to share with you is built entirely around this principle: avocado cocoa mousse. Before you dismiss this, stay with me, because this is one of those foods where the taste is genuinely surprising and the mechanism behind it is genuinely impressive. Avocado is one of the richest natural sources of monounsaturated fat available. About 70% of the fat in avocado comes from a compound called oleic acid, which is the same primary fat found in olive oil. Oleic acid has been shown in multiple studies to reduce markers of inflammation in the body and to improve the sensitivity of cell receptors to insulin, meaning it helps make those locks more responsive to the insulin key. Avocado also contains a significant amount of fiber, about 10 grams in a single fruit. And fiber, as we will discuss more in a moment, is one of the most powerful tools for blood sugar management that exists. It slows digestion, slows glucose absorption, and feeds the beneficial bacteria in your gut. Now, when you combine avocado with pure, unsweetened cocoa, something interesting happens. Cocoa, real cocoa, not sweetened chocolate, not cocoa mix, but pure cocoa powder, contains compounds called flavonols. These are antioxidant compounds that have been studied specifically for their effects on blood sugar and cardiovascular health. Cocoa flavonols have been shown to improve blood flow to tissues, which helps insulin reach the cells that need it. They also appear to reduce oxidative stress, a type of cellular damage that is linked to insulin resistance and which is driven partly by inflammation. And they support the production of nitric oxide in the body, which helps blood vessels stay flexible and responsive. So, when you put avocado and pure cocoa together, you get a combination of healthy fat, fiber, flavonols, and antioxidants, all working in the same direction, reducing inflammation, improving insulin sensitivity, and slowing the absorption of any carbohydrates consumed alongside the meal. To make this dessert, you blend one ripe avocado with 2 tablespoons of unsweetened cocoa powder, a quarter cup of unsweetened almond milk, and a small amount of natural low impact sweetener, a few drops of liquid stevia, or a very small amount of raw honey, no more than a teaspoon. Blend until completely smooth. It takes about 2 minutes. The result is a thick, rich, creamy mousse that tastes genuinely indulgent. The mistake most people make with this one is using sweetened chocolate powder or adding regular sugar, thinking a small amount will not matter. It does. It introduces refined sugar and processed additives that work directly against the benefit you are trying to create. If you want the anti inflammatory effect, it requires real cocoa. Pure, unsweetened, high quality cocoa powder. Now, I want to say something about what people often notice after regularly eating avocado. And this is something I hear from patients consistently, so I want to mention it because it might change how you think about your daily cravings. When healthy fat is a consistent part of your diet, something shifts in your appetite patterns. The intense cravings for processed sweet foods often decrease, not immediately, but gradually. This is not willpower. This is biology. Healthy fat triggers satiety hormones, the hormones that tell your brain you have had enough. Processed foods are engineered to bypass those hormones. They keep you wanting more because they are specifically designed to do that. But whole food sources of fat, avocado, olive oil, nuts, work with your satiety system the way it was meant to work. So when people add avocado to their diet consistently, they often find that saying no to the wrong foods becomes genuinely easier. Not because they are fighting harder, but because the craving was never really about willpower. It was about what their body was or was not getting. Moving to the second dessert, berry gelatin with cinnamon. And here I want to walk you through something that the vast majority of people, including many healthcare providers, do not fully appreciate the connection between your gut and your blood sugar. Inside your digestive system, primarily in your large intestine, you have a community of microorganisms so vast and complex that scientists refer to it as an ecosystem. We call it the gut microbiome. And the research on how this ecosystem affects metabolic health, including blood sugar regulation, has been one of the most significant areas of medical discovery over the past 2 decades. Here is what we know. The bacteria in your gut produce chemicals that travel through your bloodstream and influence organs throughout your body, including your pancreas, your liver, and your fat tissue. Some of these chemicals improve insulin sensitivity, others worsen it. And the balance of which bacteria dominate your gut determines which chemicals are produced in greater amounts. When the gut microbiome is healthy, rich in diverse, beneficial bacteria, the chemicals it produces tend to reduce inflammation, support insulin function, and help regulate appetite. When the microbiome is disrupted, which can happen from a diet low in fiber, high in processed foods, frequent antibiotic use, or chronic stress. The chemicals produced tend to drive inflammation and worsen insulin resistance. This is why gut health is no longer considered a separate topic from blood sugar management. They are directly connected. Natural gelatin, made from collagen, the structural protein found in animal connective tissue, supports the lining of your gut. The gut lining is a single layer of cells that acts as a barrier, controlling what passes from your digestive system into your bloodstream. When that lining is compromised, a condition sometimes called increased intestinal permeability, inflammatory compounds can leak through in greater amounts, contributing to systemic inflammation and worsening insulin resistance. Gelatin provides the amino acids, particularly glycine and proline, that your gut lining uses to repair and maintain itself. It is genuinely restorative for gut health in a way that most foods are not. Now, the berries. Berries, blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, blackberries, are among the most nutrient dense foods available. Calorie for calorie, they deliver more beneficial compounds than almost any other food. And several of those compounds are specifically relevant for people managing blood sugar. One group is called anthocyanins. These are the pigments that give berries their deep blue, red, and purple colors. And beyond being antioxidants, anthocyanins have been studied for their ability to improve insulin sensitivity through a mechanism that does not require insulin itself. They appear to activate a pathway inside cells that helps them absorb glucose more readily, independently of the insulin signal. Think of it as a side door that anthocyanins can help open, reducing your body's reliance on the main door that insulin manages. Berries are also high in fiber, particularly a type called soluble fiber, which dissolves in water and forms a gel in your digestive system. That gel slows the digestion of everything you eat alongside it, which slows the release of glucose into your bloodstream. So even the natural sugars in berries are absorbed slowly because of the fiber they contain. This is why whole berries have a very different effect on blood sugar than berry juice, where the fiber has been removed. And then cinnamon. Real cinnamon, and I want to emphasize this because it matters. Ceylon cinnamon, not the cassia cinnamon that is most commonly sold in grocery stores. These are two different plants with different chemical profiles. Cassia cinnamon contains a compound called coumarin, which in large amounts can affect liver function. Ceylon cinnamon has very little coumarin, and it is the variety that has been studied for its effects on blood sugar. Ceylon cinnamon contains compounds, particularly one called cinnamaldehyde, that appear to mimic some of the actions of insulin in the body. They help your cells respond to glucose more readily. They support the activity of insulin receptors, and they slow the absorption of carbohydrates from the digestive tract. Multiple controlled studies have shown that consistent use of Ceylon cinnamon, even in amounts as small as half a teaspoon per day, can meaningfully reduce fasting blood sugar levels and improve overall blood sugar control over time. This is not folklore. This is documented in peer-reviewed research, and it is available in every well-stocked grocery store. To make the berry gelatin, you dissolve 2 teaspoons of quality unflavored natural gelatin powder in 2 cups of warm water. Not boiling, just warm. Then add 1 cup of mixed fresh or lightly thawed berries. Stir in half a teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon. Pour into a container and refrigerate for 2 to 3 hours until set. That is the entire recipe. Simple, affordable, genuinely enjoyable, and working on 3 separate mechanisms simultaneously. The mistake with this one is using commercial flavored gelatin mixes, the brightly colored packets you find in most grocery stores. These products contain artificial colors, artificial flavors, and processed sugars that directly counteract what you are trying to accomplish. The ingredient list on what you use should be short: gelatin, berries, cinnamon. That is it. Now, I want to pause here and talk about something that I think is important for the long-term picture: Because these individual foods matter, but the pattern matters more. One of the most illuminating shifts in diabetes research over the past decade has been the move away from looking at individual foods in isolation toward looking at dietary patterns as a whole. Because the body does not experience individual nutrients in isolation, it experiences everything together in combination over time. What the research consistently shows is that it is the overall quality of your diet, the balance of anti inflammatory versus pro inflammatory foods, the total amount of fiber, the diversity of plant compounds, the ratio of whole foods to processed foods. That determines how your body functions over months and years. Not any single meal, not any single ingredient. This is important for two reasons. First, it means that one imperfect meal does not undo your progress. The body is resilient. It responds to consistent patterns, not isolated incidents. So the occasional choice that is not ideal does not set you back significantly if the overall direction of your eating is supportive. Second, it means that adding beneficial foods, even without dramatically changing everything else, does move the needle. Every supportive food you add creates a slightly better environment inside your body, and those small improvements accumulate over time. This is why the approach I am describing today is not about perfection, it is about direction. Are you moving gradually toward a diet that reduces inflammation and supports insulin sensitivity? If yes, your body will respond, not overnight, but consistently, over time. And that brings me to the third dessert, the one that genuinely surprises people: chia pudding with almond milk. Chia seeds have an unusual and very specific property that makes them unlike almost any other food. When they come into contact with liquid, they absorb it and swell, forming a gel. A thick, viscous, fibrous gel that coats your digestive tract and changes the environment your food is absorbed in. This gel is made up almost entirely of soluble fiber, specifically a type called mucilaginous fiber. And this type of fiber has a very particular effect on blood sugar that goes beyond simply slowing digestion. Here's what happens. When you eat chia seeds soaked in liquid, as in a pudding, that gel moves through your digestive system alongside everything else you have eaten. As glucose tries to pass through the lining of your intestines into your bloodstream, the gel creates a physical barrier that slows that process dramatically. Instead of glucose moving quickly from your gut into your blood, it moves slowly, steadily, in small amounts at a time. The result is that instead of a sharp spike in blood sugar after eating, the kind that forces your pancreas to flood your system with insulin, you get a slow, gradual, manageable rise. Your pancreas releases insulin at a pace it can handle. Your blood sugar stays much closer to the stable range. And then it comes back down just as gradually without the sharp drop that causes cravings and fatigue. That smooth curve, gentle rise, gradual fall, is what stable blood sugar feels like from the inside. It is what consistent energy feels like. It is what the absence of sudden cravings and crashes feels like. But here's what makes chia seeds truly remarkable. The benefit does not stop at the meal you're eating. Researchers studying the effects of viscous fiber discovered something unexpected. They called it the second meal effect, and it works like this. When you eat chia seeds, or any significant source of viscous fiber, the gel they form in your digestive system does not fully clear overnight. It persists. And when you eat your next meal, your digestive system is still partially coated in that fiber-rich gel, which means your next meal is also absorbed more slowly. Your blood sugar response to your next meal is smoother and more controlled than it would have been without the chia. This means that chia pudding, consumed in the evening, does not just benefit your evening blood sugar. It may also create a more stable glucose response the following morning at breakfast. Even if breakfast contains carbohydrates that would normally cause a faster spike, This carry forward effect is real, it is documented, and it is one of the most practical and underappreciated benefits of fiber rich foods for people managing blood sugar. Chia seeds are also a meaningful source of omega 3 fatty acids, specifically a plant based omega 3 called ALL. Omega 3 fatty acids are among the most well studied anti inflammatory nutrients in existence. They help balance the body's inflammatory signaling pathways, reducing the chronic low grade inflammation that contributes to insulin resistance. So while the fiber is working on your blood sugar mechanically, the omega 3 content is working at a deeper level on the inflammatory environment that affects how your cells respond to insulin. And chia seeds contain calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus, minerals that play supporting roles in metabolic health, muscle function, and the regulation of blood sugar at the cellular level. To make chia pudding, you combine 3 tablespoons of chia seeds with 1 cup of unsweetened almond milk. Stir well to distribute the seeds evenly, then refrigerate for a minimum of 4 hours. Overnight is ideal. By morning, the mixture has transformed into a thick, creamy, genuinely satisfying pudding. You can top it with a small handful of berries, a pinch of Ceylon cinnamon, or a very light drizzle of natural sweetener. The mistake most people make with this one is reaching for sweetened toppings. Flavored syrups, sweetened granola, large amounts of honey, or flavored yogurt. All of these introduce refined sugars quickly and counteract the slow release mechanism that makes chia pudding so effective. Keep toppings simple and you preserve the full benefit. Now, I want to talk about what happens when you start combining these foods consistently. Not just eating one of them occasionally, but making them a regular part of your routine. Your body responds to consistency. That is a fundamental principle of how biological systems work. One meal does not change your insulin sensitivity. One night of good sleep does not reverse months of poor sleep. But consistent inputs over weeks and months produce measurable changes in the underlying system. People who begin incorporating anti inflammatory foods regularly, including the 3 we discussed, tend to notice a progression. In the first week or 2, the changes are subtle. Slightly more stable energy, a bit less of the afternoon crash, cravings that feel a little more manageable. These are early signs that the system is beginning to respond. Over the following weeks, if the consistency is maintained, more significant changes often emerge. Fasting blood sugar readings that are more predictable, post-meal spikes that are less dramatic, better sleep, which further improves insulin sensitivity, which further stabilizes blood sugar. The systems start supporting each other rather than working against each other. And over months, people sometimes find that the conversation with their doctor changes, that their numbers are consistently better, that medication adjustments become something worth discussing, not because anyone told them to stop their medication. Please never stop medication without your physician's guidance. But because the body's underlying function has genuinely improved and the numbers reflect that. I have seen this happen. It is not universal and it is not guaranteed, but it is real and it is possible in a way that pure restriction rarely achieves on its own. Let me take a moment to talk about something that does not get enough attention in conversations about blood sugar management: the role of what you drink. Most of the focus in diabetes management is on food, and rightly so. Food is the primary driver of blood sugar changes. But beverages contribute in ways that are often underestimated, partly because people do not always think of what they drink as eating. Sugary drinks, sodas, fruit juices, sweet teas, flavored coffees, energy drinks deliver glucose directly and rapidly into your bloodstream with essentially no fiber to slow them down. A standard glass of orange juice, for example, contains roughly the same amount of sugar as several pieces of whole fruit, but without the fiber that would slow its absorption. The result is a much faster blood sugar spike than eating the actual fruit would produce. This is not intuitive for most people. Orange juice feels healthy. It has vitamins. It comes from fruit. But the processing that turns whole fruit into juice removes almost all the fiber that makes fruit safe for people monitoring blood sugar. What is left is essentially sugar water with some vitamins added. The same principle applies to smoothies that are made primarily with fruit and no added fiber source. Without fiber, the natural sugars in fruit absorb quickly and spike blood sugar in ways that whole fruit does not. Water is the single best beverage for blood sugar management. Staying well hydrated actually helps your kidneys clear excess glucose from your system more efficiently. When you are dehydrated, glucose concentrates in your bloodstream, which can push blood sugar readings higher than they would otherwise be. Green tea deserves a mention here as well. Multiple studies have shown that regular consumption of green tea without added sugar has a modest but measurable beneficial effect on fasting blood sugar and insulin sensitivity. The compounds responsible appear to be catechins, a group of antioxidants found in green tea leaves. They are not a substitute for medication or dietary changes, but they are a genuinely supportive addition for people managing blood sugar. Black coffee, consumed in moderation and without sugar, also appears to have neutral to mildly beneficial effects on insulin sensitivity in most people. The caffeine can raise cortisol temporarily, which can elevate blood sugar acutely. This is why some people notice higher readings right after their morning coffee. But the other compounds in coffee, including chlorogenic acid, appear to improve insulin sensitivity over the longer term. Now, let me address something that I think prevents a lot of people from making progress. And it is not a dietary issue, it is a psychological one. Managing diabetes can become a source of significant shame and guilt. Every food choice feels like a test you might fail. Every high reading feels like evidence that you are doing something wrong. Every slip, every time you ate something you should not have or skipped a walk you planned to take, can feel like proof that you lack discipline. I want to address this directly, because this kind of thinking is not just emotionally painful, it is metabolically harmful. Stress and guilt activate your body's stress response. Cortisol rises. And as I mentioned earlier, elevated cortisol increases inflammation and directly worsens insulin resistance. So the stress you feel about your blood sugar can actually make your blood sugar worse. This is a real documented biological mechanism, not a metaphor. The people I have seen make the most sustainable progress with diabetes management are not the ones who are the strictest with themselves. They are the ones who approach their health with curiosity rather than judgment, who treat a high reading not as a failure but as information, who understand that progress is not a straight line, and who are willing to consistently make somewhat better choices without demanding perfection. Compassion towards yourself is not weakness. In the context of managing a chronic condition, it is actually a metabolic strategy. I also want to talk about movement because I think it is often presented in a way that feels overwhelming or irrelevant to people who are managing health challenges. You do not need to go to a gym. You do not need to run. You do not need to do anything that feels athletic or intense muscle contraction. Any muscle contraction causes your muscles to absorb glucose directly from your bloodstream, independent of insulin. This is called non-insulin mediated glucose uptake, and it is one of the most powerful tools available for lowering blood sugar in the immediate term. A 10-minute walk after a meal has been studied specifically in the context of blood sugar management, and the results are consistent. Even a gentle 10-minute walk taken within an hour of eating can reduce post-meal blood sugar spikes by 20 to 30%. Not because of calorie burning, not because of cardiovascular fitness, but because the muscles being used absorb glucose directly, reducing how much stays in the bloodstream. This is not a huge time commitment, it is 10 minutes. After dinner, a walk around the block. That one habit, practiced consistently, is one of the most evidence-supported things a person with type 2 diabetes can do. Similarly, gentle resistance exercise, using light weights or even just body weight, builds muscle tissue over time. And more muscle means more tissue that can absorb glucose. This is one of the reasons why maintaining or building muscle becomes increasingly important as we age and as metabolic conditions develop. More muscle is genuinely protective. Again, you do not need a gym membership. Chair based exercises, walking, gentle resistance with household items. The bar for benefit is much lower than most people imagine. Now, let me bring this back to the three desserts and tie the whole picture together, because I want to be clear about how these individual foods connect to everything we have discussed. The avocado cocoa mousse works because the healthy monounsaturated fat in avocado reduces inflammation, improves insulin sensitivity at the cellular level, and provides fiber that slows digestion. The flavonols in pure cocoa further reduce inflammation and support blood flow and glucose uptake. Together, they create a food that actively improves the biological environment rather than simply avoiding harm. The berry gelatin with cinnamon works because natural gelatin supports the integrity of your gut lining, which reduces one of the pathways by which inflammation enters the bloodstream. The anthocyanins in berries support glucose uptake through an insulin independent pathway, providing a separate mechanism of blood sugar support. And Ceylon cinnamon directly mimics some of insulin's actions, helping cells respond to glucose more readily. The chia pudding works because the viscous fiber in chia seeds physically slows glucose absorption, not just for that meal, but for the following meal as well through the second meal effect. The omega-3 content works on the inflammatory environment, and the combined effect creates one of the most sustained, steady, mechanically reliable blood sugar responses of any food available. Three desserts, three completely different mechanisms, all pointing in the same direction, all working with your body's systems rather than simply avoiding what triggers them. And here's the overarching principle that connects all of it. The goal is not just to eat less of what harms you, the goal is to eat more of what actively supports your body's ability to function well. That reframe changes your relationship with food entirely. You are not depriving yourself. You are choosing foods that have genuine and specific benefits for the systems you are trying to support. You are making investments in your own biology, and that is a completely different feeling than restriction. Let me now give you a simple, concrete starting point, because I know that too much information at once can feel overwhelming and lead to doing nothing at all. For the next 7 days, I want you to add just one of these three desserts to your routine, not all three. Not an overhaul of everything you eat, just one addition. Pick the one that sounds most appealing or most accessible to you. Make it correctly without the common mistakes I described. Eat it consistently for 7 days and pay attention, not just to your blood sugar numbers, although those matter. Also, pay attention to your energy through the day, your cravings, how you feel after meals, whether the afternoon slump is different, whether your sleep feels different. These subtle signals matter. They are your body communicating how it is responding, and learning to listen to them, to connect what you eat to how you feel, not just what your numbers say, is one of the most